Hey Bio 105 students, Dr. M here, and we're going to talk today a little bit about coconuts. Okay, this is the type of coconut you see in the store. If I bring it up close to the camera here, you can see that it has kind of a little bit of a fibrous husk here, and then the inside is pretty solid. Okay, that's what you're going to see in the store, but that's not the whole story. In nature, when a coconut falls off a tree, it looks a lot like this. It's got a hard outer coating. You don't see any of that fibrous stuff, and it's pretty big. It's also relatively light. There's a lot of air inside it, and that's important because the coconut's strategy for dispersal is to fall from the tree, land on the shore, and get washed out to sea, and potentially end up thousands of miles away. Coconut is probably one of the longest dispersing plants on the planet, but is limited to growing around tropical seas unless humans intervene. This coconut has been hollowed out so you can see the various parts. Here's that outer seed coat. Okay, that's that hard outer part that I was just showing you. But inside that, there's several layers. There's a fibrous layer in here, and when you get the coconut at the store, you're just getting this very inner part here. This part right in through here. That's all you see when you buy the coconut in the store. All the rest of this gets stripped away. This part in here is called core, and it can be used for a number of things, including mulch. There's some studies out that indicate that it inhibits seedlings from growing and stuff like that, so it makes a good mulch. All of this outer material can be burned to make charcoal, making it fairly renewable. This inside here is where the embryo would be and where all the coconut milk and the meat and all that stuff is found. Okay, so we'll take a closer look at that in a second. Our former botanist, Dr. Chunko, picked this little thing up someplace. I know they carve these in Mexico. It's a little monkey that is made out of a coconut, and you could just see on the crown of the head, that's that outer shell. Here's the coir, the fibrous inner husk, and then if you look right down here, there's the part that you would see in the grocery store, and then the hollow inside. Okay, so this is a little artifact that reminds us of all the different parts of the coconut. And again, this is the one that we have that you would find in the grocery store, and if I shake it, you can hear that there's liquid inside. So we're going to crack this baby open and see what's going on inside there. But first of all, of course, safety first. Okay, so let's crack the coconut open. Before I do that, I should show you on the underside there are these three indentations. Those are the germination pores. Eventually that's where the embryo would come out, and we're going to be looking for that embryo in a little bit. Here's the coconut water coming out. And just let that drain a little bit. And you can see there's a fair amount of liquid in there. Now, when a coconut first comes out, first falls off the tree, it's almost all liquid inside. And that liquid is full of cell nuclei and material that can be made into protoplasm. Okay, over time what happens is as the coconut settles down, those nuclei also settle and they begin to wall off a little portion and turn into a solid material that we call the coconut meat. And we'll see that in just a second. So right now we're getting a lot of basically protoplasm with cell nuclei floating around. This coconut's going to be relatively mature, so there's a fair amount of meat inside, but also a little bit of liquid. If you're in tropical areas, the locals will often take a machete and just chop the top off a coconut, stick a straw in it, and give you the coconut water to drink directly. And there's going to be a lot more of it because not too much has settled down into meat. Let's crack this the rest of the way open. Okay, so there is the coconut now split open so we can see the coconut meat inside. Okay, and that material can be pressed, you can get oils out of that, and you can get a number of other materials from that. A lot of cosmetics are based on coconut and so forth. So let me clean up a little bit and I'll show you the rest of the inside of the coconut. Okay, so we're looking now at the end of the coconut with those germination pores. Okay, you can see the 3 of those. The Portuguese word that we get coconut from refers to face, and it was thought that these 3 things represent the eyes and the mouth of a face. Okay, so you can see this coconut meat in here, there's a fair amount of it, and it's kind of flaky. You can cut it off, you can eat it, just like that. If you buy flake coconut in the store, that's what you get. They will dry that material out and they will sell it as dried coconut meat or copra. And that was a big export for many of the Polynesian islands for a long time. You have to dry it out because you can't ship it long distances. It will rot if you leave it wet. So they would dry it out. But you can still press oil and other materials from that. Now the embryo is going to be down inside here, way down in the bottom. You can see a little pit in there perhaps. That's probably about where the embryo is. We're going to go take a look for it. I'm going to have to crack this a little bit more. So we'll be back in underneath one of these little indentations, one of those germination pores. You might be able to see this little nubbin right next to my finger here. Okay, that little nubbin right there, that's the embryo. And eventually that will grow out through that pore, through the rest of the husk, and out into the open, start sending out roots and leaves. Okay, so that's what's going to be the developing plant. It will have all this coconut meat in here to nourish it as it does so. And of course that meat has a lot of water tied up into it. Coconuts growing on salty shores, they need some fresh water, and this will supply it. You can also see here how thick this inner coat is relative to the thickness of the meat that's in here as well. But again, there is that embryo right there in the corner. We'll get a still picture of that up here for you in just a second. So that's the coconut. Now, is it a nut like the name implies, or is it a drupe or an akene or whatever? That's for you to figure out. So enjoy the rest of the lab. And if you get a chance, stop by the store sometime, pick up a coconut, take it home, crack it open yourself, see if you can find the embryo, and enjoy both the milk, or the coconut water, which you can drink, as well as the meat. So again, Dr. M, that's the coconut for the Flowers and Fruit Lab.